Take off everything. Put this on. The American soldier holds white fabric through the doorway. Thin, almost see-through. Kimiko's hands won't stop trembling. Beside her, Noriko, 19, telegraph operator, hasn't eaten in 4 days, makes a sound like a wounded animal, not a scream. Worse, acceptance. The holding camp sits in a Philippine jungle clearing, makeshift wooden walls, rusted tin roof. Humidity so thick it coats the lungs. 31 Japanese women huddle in a space meant for 10. They've been prisoners for 6 hours, and now this. Here's what the propaganda taught them. Americans rape first, then photograph, then kill. In that order, every Japanese soldier heard it, every woman heard it twice. 127 Japanese women held by U.S. forces in the entire Pacific Theater. That's it. Kimiko is one of them. Noriko is another. The others have stopped counting themselves as people. America jin wa onna odugu mitai ni tsukau. Americans use women like tools. That's what the Imperial Army films showed. 47 films, 0 of them real. But Kimiko doesn't know that, not yet. The soldier's boots creak on wet wood. He's young, maybe 25, with dust on his uniform and exhaustion in his eyes. He doesn't enter, doesn't step past the threshold, just holds out the white fabric like an offering or a sentence. Medical inspection. His voice cracks. 1 hour. Kimiko's English is limited but functional. She worked at a hospital in Manila before the Army claimed her. She understands the words. But her brain refuses to process them. Medical inspection in thin nightgowns, nothing underneath. At night. The fabric whispers against her fingers when she takes it. Cotton, cheap. The kind that tears if you pull too hard, the kind that hides nothing. Behind her, Reiko, 28, former schoolteacher from Kobe, starts praying. Not Buddhist prayers, Christian ones. She converted 6 months ago. The irony isn't lost on anyone. The American soldier drops the remaining gowns on the floor. 14 of them. White against mud-stained wood. He turns to leave. But then he pauses, says something to a shadow behind him, someone Kimiko can't see. And the shadow responds. In Japanese, flawless Japanese, Tokyo accent, educated. Kimiko's blood freezes. A translator. They have a Japanese translator, which means they've planned this, prepared for it. Her throat tightens. Sweat drips down her spine despite the fear chill. The soldier leaves. The door stays open. And then the shadow steps into the light. The translator is American. That's the first thing Kimiko notices. His uniform, U.S. Army. But his face, Japanese, completely. Takeshi Morita, 32, Nisei from Los Angeles. His parents sit in an internment camp in Arizona while he serves the country that imprisoned them. He doesn't explain any of this. Not yet. The nightgowns are for medical inspection. His Japanese is perfect. Too perfect. It sounds wrong coming from an enemy uniform. Lice, typhus prevention. Female nurses will examine you. Nobody moves. Kenza wa shokei no betsu no namae da. Inspection is another name for execution. That's what Noriko whispers. The words pass through the room like infection. Reiko's prayers get louder. Someone in the back starts crying, soft, hopeless sobs. Here's the number that matters, 89%. That's how many Japanese POWs believed American medical inspections were cover for biological experiments. The propaganda was specific, detailed. Photographs, faked but convincing. Takeshi's jaw tightens. He's heard these fears before, 53 times across 7 camps. It never gets easier. No photographs. He keeps his voice steady. No men in the room, only nurses. Kimiko watches his hands. They're shaking. Why are his hands shaking? The humidity presses down. Mosquitoes whine in the corners. Someone swats at nothing. The white gowns sit untouched on the mud floor. Why should we believe you? Reiko stops praying long enough to speak. Her voice is hoarse. Her glasses are cracked, one lens missing entirely. You wear their uniform. Takeshi doesn't answer immediately. 6,000 Nisei translators served in the Pacific, trusted by neither side. The Americans questioned their loyalty. The Japanese considered them traitors. Takeshi exists in the space between, belonging nowhere. My mother is in a camp too. The words cost him something. Different kind, same fear. Silence. Then Noriko asks the question that changes everything. Small voice, barely audible. Will they photograph us first before they... She can't finish. Takeshi's face goes white. He understands now. Not just fear, certainty. These women believe, with absolute conviction, that documentation precedes death, that cameras are preludes to graves. He turns toward the door, says something in English to someone outside. Fast. Urgent. Kimiko catches one word. Female. Boots approach. Multiple sets. Lighter than the soldiers. Reiko grips her white gown, knuckles bloodless, ready for whatever comes. The door opens wider, and Kimiko sees something the propaganda never showed, something that makes no sense at all. A woman. American uniform. Officer's insignia. Lieutenant Bars catching dim light. Lieutenant Grace Nakamura, 29, Army Nurse Corps, third-generation Hawaiian-Japanese, stands in the doorway. Behind her, 2 more nurses, also women, also American. Kimiko's brain stalls. Ona no shoko, sore wa wana nichigainai? A female officer. It must be a trap. The propaganda never mentioned female soldiers. Not once. 47 films, hundreds of pamphlets, 0 women in American uniforms, because that would complicate the narrative. Monsters don't have mothers. Rapists don't take orders from nurses. Grace steps inside. Her boots leave clean prints in the mud. She surveys the room. 31 terrified faces, white gowns. On the floor, humidity thick enough to taste. My name is Lieutenant Nakamura. She speaks Japanese with a Hawaiian accent, softer than Takeshi's. Less Tokyo, more island. I understand you're afraid. I would be too. Nobody responds. Here's what Grace doesn't say. Her grandmother was born in Osaka. Her cousins fought for Japan. 2 are dead now. 1 killed by Americans. 1 by his own officers for suggesting surrender. War makes everything complicated. The gowns allow examination without full undressing. Grace's voice stays steady, professional. We check for lice. Lice carry typhus. Typhus killed 3 million people in the last war. We're trying to prevent that here. Reiko laughs, bitter, broken. Prevent death? You're Americans. Death is what you do. Grace doesn't flinch. 23 months in the Pacific. She's heard worse. 59,000 nurses served in this war. Grace holds Reiko's gaze. 201 died, not from causing death, from trying to prevent it. The number hangs in the humid air. Behind Grace, a younger nurse shifts uncomfortably. Red hair, freckles, pale skin that doesn't belong in jungle heat. Private First Class Bridget Sullivan, 22, first deployment, Boston Irish. Bridget is terrified too. Different fear, same species. She's never examined enemy prisoners, never faced women who look at her like she's the monster in a nightmare. Kimiko notices Bridget's hands, also shaking, just like Takeshi's. Why is everyone's hands shaking? The examination takes 15 minutes. Grace continues, then hot water, clean clothes, food. Food. The word penetrates where logic can't. Noriko's stomach growls audibly. She hasn't eaten in 96 hours. But Kimiko focuses on something else, something Grace said without saying it. Female nurses only, no men in the room. That's not conquest protocol. That's not what conquerors do. Grace extends her hand toward the gowns. Whenever you're ready. And then Kimiko asks the question no one else will. Why do you care if we have lice? Kimiko's voice cuts through the silence. Reiko stops breathing. Noriko's eyes widen. Nobody asks captors questions. That's rule 1. You accept. You endure. You don't engage. Kimiko just broke the rule. Grace doesn't hesitate. Because typhus doesn't care about uniforms. If you die from disease, we failed our job. Neis teki ga watashi tachi otasketai noka. Why would the enemy want to save us? The question circles Kimiko's mind. No answer fits. The propaganda gave no framework for this. Cruelty, yes. Brutality, expected. But prevention, care, medical protocols designed to keep prisoners alive, that's not how enemies work. The Geneva Convention, Grace continues, signed 1929. POWs receive medical treatment equal to capturing Army's own soldiers. We follow it. Bridget nods from behind. Her hands have stopped shaking. Procedure helps. Routine steadies fear. Japanese Army didn't sign it. Reiko's voice drips acid. Why should you follow it for us? Because we did. Grace's response is immediate. No anger, no defensiveness. Rules don't stop applying because someone else breaks them. The humidity presses down. Sweat tracks down Kimiko's spine. Somewhere outside, generators hum. Electric light flickers. Here's the number nobody in this room knows yet. U.S. Army POW mortality rate, 1.19%. Japanese POW mortality rate in American custody, 0.8%. Lower than American citizens dying in car accidents that same year. They'll learn this later. Much later. For now, there's only the nightgown, thin white fabric, almost transparent. Noriko picks one up, hands trembling, looks at Kimiko for permission or reassurance, or something neither of them can name. Kimiko nods, barely perceptible. Noriko disappears behind a makeshift curtain, blankets strung across a corner, the sound of fabric against skin, old uniform falling, new gown rising. Grace waits, patient, giving them time. Bridget sets up examination supplies, wooden tongue depressors, small flashlight, comb with fine teeth. No needles, no scalpels, no cameras. One by one the women change. Reiko is last. She holds her gown for 3 full minutes before moving. Her prayers have stopped. Something worse has replaced them. Hope, fragile, terrifying in its own way, because hope can be crushed. Certainty can't. Kimiko emerges in white. The gown is thin. She feels exposed, vulnerable, everything the propaganda promised. But no one is looking at her body. Grace is checking a clipboard. Bridget arranges supplies. The door stays open. The guards stay outside. Then Grace approaches Kimiko first and sees something that stops her cold. Burn marks, deliberate, patterned, on Kimiko's left forearm. Bridget has seen this before on American soldiers who tried erasing tattoos, gang symbols, ex-girlfriends' names, regrettable decisions made permanent. But this is different. The burn obscures something specific. Medical insignia, Imperial Army Nurse Corps. Kimiko destroyed her own identification. You did this to yourself. Not a question. Grace's voice is soft. Kimiko doesn't respond. Her jaw tightens, eyes fixed on the wall behind Grace's shoulder. Mushi no mama de shinu hoga, teki ni tsukamaru yorimashi. Better to die with honor than be captured by the enemy. That's what they taught her. Capture meant dishonor. Identification meant targeting. So Kimiko took a heated metal rod, and she doesn't finish the memory. Here's what the numbers reveal. 67% of Japanese female POWs showed evidence of self-harm upon capture. Burns, cuts, attempted erasure of identifying marks, preparation for deaths that never came. Bridget's throat tightens. She's 22. This is her first deployment. Nothing in Boston prepared her for this. The burns are infected, Grace examines without touching. Respectful distance. When did you do this? 4 days ago. Kimiko's voice is hollow. Before the convoy. 4 days, no treatment, tropical heat, humidity breeding bacteria. The wound should have killed her by now. Sepsis, fever, organ failure. Somehow it hasn't. Grace turns to Bridget. Sulfanilamide powder, sterile bandages. Move. Bridget doesn't hesitate. Medical training overrides fear. Supplies appear. Clean gauze. White powder that smells like chemistry labs. Kimiko watches them work, still confused, still waiting for the other shoe to drop. This will sting, Grace warns, but it'll prevent amputation. Amputation, the word penetrates. In Japanese camps, infected wounds meant one thing: saw, bone, screaming, no anesthesia for prisoners. Americans are bringing powder, bandages, prevention. Kimiko's eyes fill with something she hasn't felt in months. Not tears, not yet, but pressure. Behind her eyes, in her chest. Don't. She commands herself, don't feel. Feeling is weakness. Weakness is death. But Bridget looks up while applying the bandage, makes eye contact, and does something no manual taught her. She smiles, small, quick, human. You're going to be okay. Bridget's Japanese is terrible, accent mangled, grammar wrong. But Kimiko understands perfectly. The bandage wraps around the burn, white on red, clean on infected. Reiko watches from across the room, still in her white gown, still expecting the worst. But something has shifted, something invisible and profound. Grace moves to the next patient, Noriko, trembling but standing, and then Grace sees Noriko's feet, glass, embedded in both feet, 12 shards visible, more beneath the skin. Noriko walked 300 miles from a forward position to Manila. When her boots disintegrated, she kept walking, barefoot, through rubble, through shattered windows, through everything the war left behind. She stopped feeling her feet 2 weeks ago. "How are you standing?" Bridget's voice cracks, professional composure dissolving. "Aruku ka shinu ka?" Walk or die. That's what Noriko whispers. Simple math. Feet stop, body stops, war wins. Grace kneels, examines without touching yet. The wounds have closed around the glass, skin healing over shrapnel, the body adapting to impossible conditions. "We need to extract these," Grace speaks to Bridget. "Scalpel, local anesthetic, tweezers." Noriko's eyes widen. Scalpel. The word translates across languages. Cutting instrument, sharp. "No." She steps back, gown swirling. "No cutting." Grace raises her hands, palms visible, universal gesture. "The glass is causing infection. If we don't remove it, you'll lose your feet, then your legs." Japanese military hospitals had different approaches, amputation without question, pain without relief. Noriko knows what cutting means, but Grace doesn't move toward her, doesn't force, just waits. Bridget holds the anesthetic syringe. Her hands are steady now. Strange how competence arrives when panic is no longer optional. "The injection numbs the area," Grace explains slowly. "You won't feel the extraction, just pressure." "Neis kurushimi oherasu no ka watashi tachi wateki da." Why reduce our pain? We're the enemy. Noriko doesn't say it aloud, but her eyes ask. Here's the answer she'll learn later. U.S. Army Medical Protocol, revised 1943, applies identical treatment standards to POWs and American soldiers, not because of morality, because of logistics. Healthy prisoners require fewer resources than dying ones. Compassion disguised as efficiency, humanity justified by spreadsheets. The result is the same. "Sit." Grace gestures to a wooden bench. "Please. Please." The word breaks something in Noriko. Commanders don't say please. Captors don't ask. She sits. Bridget administers the injection. Noriko flinches, expecting fire, finding only cold. Then nothing. Numbness spreading through tissue. Grace works quickly. Tweezers flash in flickering electric light. First shard emerges. Bloody. Triangular. About an inch long. Noriko stares at it. Evidence of 300 miles. Proof of survival. Second shard. Third. Fourth. 12 extractions total. 23 minutes. When it's done, Noriko's feet are bandaged. White wrapping. Clean. Professional. She tries to stand. Her legs buckle. Bridget catches her. And in that moment, enemy nurse holding enemy prisoner, something irreversible happens. Reiko sees it. Kimiko sees it. The propaganda fractures. Bridget doesn't let go. That's what Reiko notices. The extraction is finished. Noriko's feet are bandaged. Protocol complete. But Bridget's arm stays around Noriko's waist, supporting, steadying, not procedure, something else. Te onigiru koto wa kotobayori motsuyoi. Holding someone is stronger than words. Kimiko's grandmother said that, years ago. Another lifetime, before uniforms and convoys and burns on forearms. Grace continues examinations, efficient, thorough, checking scalps for lice, teeth for infection, skin for rashes. No one has typhus, no one has lice. The worst conditions are malnutrition, dehydration, and Noriko's feet. By POW standards, they're healthy. By human standards, they're wrecked. Reiko is last. She's been watching everything, categorizing, analyzing. The teacher in her never stops observing. Your turn. Grace gestures. Reiko approaches, steps measured, controlled. She removes her gown for the examination with deliberate composure. No burns, no glass, no visible wounds. But Grace sees something else. Ribs prominent, collarbone sharp, the architecture of starvation. When did you last eat? Grace asks. Tuesday. Reiko's voice is flat. Maybe Monday. Today is Saturday, 5 days, 6 maybe, without food. Here's the number. Japanese military rations, final months of war, averaged 800 calories per day, less than half survival requirement. American POW camps provided 3,200. They were eating more as prisoners than as soldiers. Reiko doesn't know this yet. She'll learn. It will break something in her. Bridget returns with a tray, rice, vegetables, meat, steam rising. After examination, Grace says, food. Reiko stares at the tray. Her stomach contracts violently. Hunger isn't desire anymore, it's assault. Her body attacking itself for fuel. She completes the examination in silence. Grace notes everything, writes on a clipboard, efficient handwriting, American forms. Then, you're cleared. Eat. Reiko approaches the tray like it might detonate, takes rice between trembling fingers, brings it to her lips, chews, and breaks. Not crying, not exactly. Something deeper. A sound that comes from the chest rather than the throat. Noriko hobbles over, sits beside her, says nothing, just presence. Kimiko joins. Then others, one by one, white gowns, bandaged wounds, hollow eyes beginning to fill with something other than fear. Takeshi stands in the doorway, watching, his own eyes glistening. He thinks of his mother, Arizona desert, different cage, same hunger. Grace catches his gaze, holds it. Something passes between them, acknowledgement, shared weight, the impossible algebra of war. Then Reiko does something unexpected. She looks up at Bridget and speaks. 2 words, in English. Thank you. Reiko's English is accented, careful, but unmistakable. Bridget freezes. The words hit like shrapnel. In 23 months of Pacific deployment, no Japanese prisoner has ever thanked her. Cursed? Yes. Spat occasionally. Silence, mostly. Never gratitude. Kansha wakofuku no hajimari. Gratitude is the beginning of surrender. That's what Japanese training taught. Thank the enemy, lose your soul. Reiko just lost hers, or found it. The distinction isn't clear. The barracks goes quiet, 30 women watching, waiting. Then Kimiko speaks, also in English, broken but determined. Why? No cameras? She's been holding this question for hours. The propaganda promised documentation, evidence of atrocities, photographs sent to newspapers. Nothing has been documented except medical charts. Grace looks up from her clipboard. Because that's not what we do. Sor wa watashi tachi ga suru koto de wa nai, Takeshi translates. The words land differently in Japanese. More weight, more impossibility. Here's what happens next, the detail that breaks the remaining barriers. Grace reaches into her uniform pocket, pulls out a photograph, holds it toward Kimiko. A baby, maybe 6 months old, black hair, American hospital blanket. My niece. Grace's voice softens. Born last month. My sister sent this. She's showing them her family. Vulnerability offered freely. Trust extended first. Kimiko stares at the photograph. Enemy baby. enemy joy, enemy life continuing despite the war. I have a nephew, Kimiko whispers, doesn't translate, doesn't need to. 2 years old now, maybe. Maybe. Because she doesn't know if he survived the bombing, doesn't know if Tokyo still stands, doesn't know anything beyond this room. Grace nods, understanding without words. Noriko limps forward, reaches for paper and pen on the medical supply table. Can we... She struggles for English words, gives up, speaks to Takeshi in Japanese. She wants to write letters, Takeshi translates, to families, if they're alive. Red Cross letters, international mail, possible even in war. 2.3 million letters delivered during WWII, between enemies, through bullets. Yes? Grace doesn't hesitate. We can arrange that. The word yes detonates quietly. Women surge toward the paper, names written frantically, addresses remembered from childhood, messages compressed into permitted word counts. Takeshi collects them, stacks them, adds something to each one, a sentence in Japanese that he doesn't translate aloud. Kimiko notices, watches him write the same characters repeatedly, but she doesn't ask. Not yet. That night, the women sleep on cots instead of floors, clean blankets instead of mud. Kimiko keeps her nightgown on. Not fear anymore. Something else. April 1946. Manila General Hospital. Kimiko pushes a wheelchair. The patient is American. Private first class, Thomas Riley, 19, malaria relapse, too weak to walk. He weighs less than Kimiko did at capture. She wheels him toward the recovery ward. Past other beds, other nationalities. The hospital doesn't separate anymore. Teki data hito ga ima wa kanja. Those who were enemies are now patients. Kimiko has been volunteering here for 4 months. Her choice, not compelled, not required. The burns on her forearm have healed, scar tissue visible, but no longer angry. She stopped hiding them in February. Noriko works in the translation office. Her feet carry her now. 300 miles of glass replaced by hospital corridors. She teaches Japanese to American nurses, basic phrases, medical terms, the vocabulary of care. Reiko runs the medical library, organizing texts, translating procedures. The teacher found her classroom again. Here's the number. 1,200 Japanese POWs volunteered for Allied hospital work post-war. No compensation, no requirement. They simply stayed. Private Riley looks up at Kimiko. Your English got better, she smiles. Still unused to smiling, the muscles feel foreign. Practice. She parks the wheelchair by his bed. Every day, practice. Grace Nakamura is still stationed here. Lieutenant Commander now. Promotion came in December. She passes Kimiko in the hallway, nods. Morning. Good morning, Commander. Normal, routine, impossible. Bridget Sullivan rotates home next month. Boston waiting, family waiting. But she keeps delaying paperwork, finding reasons to stay. She and Noriko eat lunch together. Different languages, same jokes. Takeshi transferred to Occupation Administration. His translation work continues, but now he's reuniting families instead of processing prisoners. The letters he added to The Secret. Sentences finally make sense to Kimiko. She asked him last week, "What did you write on our letters?" He looked at her for a long moment. They are safe. They are treated well. The propaganda was false. 23 words added to every letter. Smuggled truth through official channels. Families in Japan received more than messages from daughters. They received first evidence that surrender didn't mean death. Kimiko still keeps her nightgown, folded in her footlocker, thin white fabric, almost transparent. She takes it out sometimes, holds it, remembers the terror, and remembers what replaced it. The wheelchair sits empty now, Private Riley sleeping, fever breaking. Outside, tropical sun blazes through hospital windows. New day, same building. But Noriko appears in the doorway, face strange, holding a telegram. Kimiko? Her voice shakes. You need to read this. The telegram is from Tokyo. Kimiko's nephew is alive. Hiroshi, 4 years old now, not 2. She missed 2 birthdays, 2 years of growing, but alive. Alive. Her hands won't stop shaking. Different shaking now, not fear. Usotsuki wa shinjitsu o osoreta, shikashi shinjitsu wa yasashi kara. We believed lies and feared truth, but truth was gentle. Noriko stands beside her. Same barracks, different country. Same women, different war. My sister wrote back too. Noriko's voice cracks. She thought I was dead for 18 months. The letters reached them. Takeshi's secret sentences reached them. Families across Japan learned the unthinkable. American captivity meant survival. Here's the final number, 4,700. That's how many reconciliation letters passed between former POWs and captors after the war. Documented, archived. Grace Nakamura kept correspondence with Reiko until 1987. 42 years of letters, 2 languages, 1 friendship. Bridget Sullivan eventually returned to Boston, but she came back to Japan in 1952, tourist visa, visited Noriko in Osaka, met her husband, held her daughter. The nightgown sits in a Tokyo museum now, donated by Kimiko in 1985, white fabric behind glass, almost transparent still. The label reads, "When fear became trust." Visitors touch the display case, fingerprints on glass, evidence of reaching. Kimiko stands in front of it sometimes, 74 years old, white hair, steady hands. She thinks about that night, the door opening, the thin fabric, the words she heard, take off everything, and the words she missed, for medical inspection. Terror has a way of editing reality, cutting context, leaving only threat. But truth doesn't work that way. Truth includes the female officers, the bandaged feet, the sulfanilamide powder on burned arms, the letters smuggled with secret sentences. Truth includes Bridget's smile, Grace's photograph, Takeshi's shaking hands. Private Riley found Kimiko in 1971, tracked her through veteran networks, flew to Tokyo, stood in front of her with his own hands. Shaking, "You pushed my wheelchair." His Japanese was terrible, accent mangled, grammar wrong, but she understood perfectly. I remember. They sat together, drank tea, said very little. Some silences hold more than words. The nightgown behind glass catches afternoon light, almost glowing. Motomo usui nuno, motomo fukai kyofu, soshite subere o kaitachi sana shinsetsu. The thinnest fabric, the deepest fear, and the smallest kindness that rewrote everything. Kimiko turns from the display, walks toward the exit. Behind her, a school group gathers, children pointing, teacher explaining. The story continues. It always continues.